students. We're going to have just a quick demo. The schedule in the classroom has changed, so I won't have a long time, but I wanted to show you the hydraulic press and just show you a couple things here. And then I want to take and show you the rolling mill real quick. We only got about 15 minutes, so let's get started. So this is the hydraulic. It's a 20-ton car jack, hydraulic car jack. There's big springs in here. It's real tough. It actually was designed by an engineer. We still wear whenever we use anything, piece of equipment. So I wanted to show you the wire die and the matrix die. And we're going to make one of these, combining the two. So the first thing is the pads are different hardnesses, and it's called durometers, but I always forget that word, so I just go by the colors. The red is hard, and that's when you need a really good hard push on something. Like the wire dies, they're very flat, and so we need to put a lot of pressure on. So that's what we're going to use for the wire dies. The matrix dies are called pillow dies, and we use this. And it says matrix die. This is a lot softer, and when we meet on Friday, I'll show you different things that can happen with using the wrong pad, using too high or not enough pressure. So bring a Sharpie marker so you can mark on there what your pressure is. On the other side here, I don't know if you can see it, there's a pressure gauge. So we can repeat if we have a successful pressing. We can go right back and repeat it. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to put a piece of 26 gauge, that's the thinnest metal. No, it's not the thinnest that we use, that's 30, but it's the thinnest that we use in the hydraulic. In the hydraulic. So I've got my mold, it's taped down with Scotch tape, taping a piece of 26 over it. You have to use masking tape. I don't want any Scotch tape on my pads. And keep the tape past where your model is. Otherwise the tape can actually imprint a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, if you look here, the distance of the ram, the higher the ram is out of the jack, the less pressure. So we have a steel box on here, and then we have another additional riser, and that is, again, to narrow that distance. Generally, the wire dies take a lot of pressure because you've got small spaces to get in between. You've got all these little tiny spaces, whereas a matrix die, you've got a big old space. It's going to go in there real fast, sometimes too fast. So I dropped a red on it. You center your die. So I tighten the jack, and I've already pumped it up part way. So you pump it until you can feel it hit. You'll feel it in the handle. So now the handle isn't dropping. I'm going to look at the pressure gauge. I'm going to go up to 6,000 on this. We have the cheater bar here. It gives women extra leverage a little bit. So remember, these can be big or small. Now, it takes a while to pump this up, so when you drop it, we just want to drop it a short distance. There we go. So what I would do if I had more time is, it's not completely as much detail as I'd like. I would press it again, go a little higher. I went up to 6,000. You can go up to 8. So keep track of your masking tape. I just don't want it on the pads or the press. pretty easy. Okay, the next thing I wanted to do is go ahead and print this and then use it in the matrix die. Which I have somewhere. Okay, so again, when you can see I had two things cut and it broke, so just use one hole on your. So you need about at least 3/8 to 1/2 inch on the outside of your hole. If you don't do that, as it's forming, it just pulls the edges in and it'll go right out. So first we're going to do the wire die, and then I'm going to use that and make the heart with the wire die on the inside. Now when we're hardening this, 26 gauge is really a little thin for a matrix die. Normally we do 24. But because we're work hardening it, it's going to work. Whereas the 24 would be a little hard to get a good wire die impression. Okay. Down, see what we got. Okay. Well, you can see it, it's a little bright. I might do it again if I have more time for you. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and put it in our die. So I'm going to put it behind the die, tape it on, and now we're going to use the yellow pad. Sometimes so the die goes on the bottom and the metal's on top of it so that the pad can push the metal into the hole. And we're going to use, remember, the yellow pad. If we want just to subtract some space, again, we can put usually I like to look at these at around 2,000. So let's take a look. Use much less pressure with the matrix die. So there's a cute little pillow. It pressed out the wire die part way. That's because I didn't have a really good impression of it. Okay. We'll certainly go over all of this again. Right now I want to show you the rolling mill. Some of the things you can do with it real quick. You can print anything on metal. You can print lace. I'm going to show you. We can use, remember when I said I love the scrapbookers because they gave us so many nice tools to use. Punching out a piece of cardstock or a postcard on this, we can print it right onto the metal, and these come in as gazillion. We have a few, but there's just literally a gazillion. different ones, birds, and just anything you could think of. So I punched out a little piece of cardstock. And the rolling mill has what's called a reduction gear. That means, it's on the far side, that means it helps you get extra pressure in there without you having to do it. It's giving you leverage. So the first thing we want to do is see how close those are together, how close the rollers are. Just kind of feel. You are going to need to feel some tension. Right now it just goes right through. So I know that it's too far open. Now I'm going to narrow. Now, you know the old righty-tighty, lefty-loosey? It's the opposite on the rolling mill. So if you want to tighten it, you're going to go to the left. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel it. Okay, that's too tight. It's taking me too much strength to pull it. You can actually damage the steel rollers, believe it or not. So what you want is tight, but not, okay, it's still too tight, so I'm gonna open it, little tiny bit, just, 5 degrees of a turn. Still too tight. I should be able to do it without too much pressure. And normally you do have to hold on to your printing material because it's gonna want to pull to the side, so. I mean, I think this is incredible, don't you? Then you could go ahead and use that in a matrix die or any other project. Works with silver, everything. So another thing I wanted to show you is, this is just a piece of lace. I look at thrift stores like old curtains or scrap bags. Polyester prints better because it's a little bit stiffer than cotton, but I've used it all. Let me just see where my different gauges are. So we used 24 for the matrix die normally. We used 26 because we were printing a wire die. Normally I would be using 24 gauge with the rolling mill because it gives it extra squish so that your printing material can go further down into the metal. I don't think I have any 24 gauge cut right now. Oh, we always clean the rollers when we're done. Take your paper off at the end of class, we WD-40 it. Now I think that, okay, so it's not tight enough. Right down. So to the left, 5 degrees or so. Tighter. Lace does not print the pattern on the lace. It gives kind of a snakeskin effect, depending on the lace. You see it? Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to show you, which is, again, thank you, scrapbookers. We have a whole bunch of these. They'll have different jaws. So if we take these and cut some slices I'm gonna take a piece of 24, I'm gonna spread them a little bit. Maybe I have them close together. Too far apart, I mean. Okay. I loosen them, so I'm gonna spread them apart like that as they go through the roller. Okay. I'm gonna try to. Okay, so again, you're gonna have to hold on to this while you're doing it. So I'm gonna let myself wind up room, hold on. We don't use any tape in the rolling mill. That would be a nightmare. We also don't use natural materials that can crumble. We don't use sandpaper. Okay, so I'm flaring those out a little bit so that we can get and see the texture. So let's see. Okay, that's a little too tight. The metal's a little thicker. Still too tight. I mean, if you meet with a full-on resistance, just keep moving at 5 degrees. There we go. Sometimes you'll do it too loose. I didn't have it quite tight enough. Let me do it again. Let's see that. Do another one, is that one I didn't have tight enough. You can't put it back in once you roll it unless you just want it to become kind of a mess. So I didn't have it quite tight enough. We do have a metal shear in the classroom, by the way. I just didn't want to get it out today. So again, just open them up a little bit. Okay, so I know that wasn't quite what I needed. So I'm going to make it a little bit tighter. See it. And I'm spreading those out with my hand. And I did make it a little extra tight so to make sure and get a good impression. Could have probably done it a little bit more. You see it? Isn't that beautiful? It'd make a great bracelet. So that's where I'm going to stop today. There is another class waiting to come in. I'll see you Friday. Bring your wire dies. I have every gauge, not a whole lot of 26, but certainly enough to get started on your wire dies. And we'll go from there. See you then.